All right, let's get started. Thanks so much for joining me in this webinar where I'm going to talk about brain breaks in the classroom and why they're a no-brainer. My name is Holly Mitchell and I've been working at TeachStarter for 6 years now. Prior to that, I was working in the early years classrooms. I've taught prep, year 1, year 2 and year 3. And whilst early years is certainly my passion, I'm hoping that a lot of the information shared in this webinar might help those of you that are in the middle or upper years as well. I'm also joined by some amazing TeachStarter staff who will be online answering any questions or responding to any comments that you may have. So they'll introduce themselves in the comments box right now, so you'll get to see who else is joining us on this webinar. I do have some notes here. I'll also have a PowerPoint that I'll be going through, so forgive me if I am looking away from the camera. I'm looking at the screen in front of me and also my notes to make sure I don't forget anything. Housekeeping, just a few housekeeping things to point out. Please utilise the Q&A function of the webinar. Please feel free, they don't have to be just questions, they can also be some fantastic brain break activity ideas that you've got, but by all means also ask some questions using that Q&A function. It's down on the toolbar of your screen and you'll also see there's a chat function. We'd prefer if you could use the Q&A part of this webinar just so that others can also see the questions that you might have, because they also might have very similar questions. So please feel free to jump in that Q&A function. The next thing before we get started is, while our webinars are not presented as professional development, I think they should be, but they aren't, you may still be able to claim the hours against your professional development. You just might have to check with your head of curriculum or your PD manager within your school. So please feel free or remind yourself to check that out. All right. I think that's all of the main things I needed to cover before I get started with the webinar. Thanks again for joining us. All right. So, as you know, you're here to learn more about brain breaks and brain breaks in the classroom. I've just put a little subheading under there. It's an evidence-based behaviour strategy. So it's not just an educational term that we're throwing around as a fun thing to include in the classroom. There's actually a lot of research behind the use of brain breaks in our lives in general, not just for adults, but for young children in your classroom as well. We know that their concentration span is quite small, and incorporating brain breaks into the classroom is only going to enhance their learning. I think back to my first year of teaching. The first term I was so excited, I had everything planned, I was covering everything I needed to plan in the school day. But the behaviour of the kids was appalling, and I kept thinking, going to my mentor saying, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Is there any other behaviour management strategies that you've used that might work? I was really struggling with their behaviour. And it wasn't until one child said to me, oh, Mrs. Mitchell, sometimes my brain's just so full that it snaps. And I was like, hang on a minute. I hadn't planned. I always want to use brain breaks in the classroom, but I'd completely forgot about actually planning them into my day. So brain breaks definitely throughout my career became something that I was very passionate about and made sure I included, particularly in the early years classroom. So that's why I was really excited to present this webinar with you all. I'd love to hear your stories. If you've got any sort of aha moments where you realised how important brain breaks were in the classroom, make sure you just comment down below. I'd love to hear them. All right, so some questions and things that I hope to cover in this webinar are why brain breaks are so important, what do brain breaks look like in the classroom, some hints and tips for picking brain breaks to suit your class. So that will also include some resources and blogs that's on the TeachStarter website that will also be a place that you can hopefully go to after this webinar for some more ideas. and also how to make brain breaks routine in your classroom. So how does it just become routine that you've got these brain breaks scheduled into your school day? So hopefully, I mean, some of this stuff I'm sure you've heard of before and you know, but sometimes it's just nice to get that refresher and listen to other teachers and what they may do in their classrooms. Just make sure that checking the time as well. I'm conscious of time and particularly teachers' time, and I can talk about things for hours and hours. So I'm just making sure that I'm not going to go too far over the timing that we've got for this webinar. Okay. Now, we had this diagram actually created a few years ago when we wrote a blog about the average concentration span by age and how to improve children's concentration in the classroom. And I just thought it was a nice little reminder for us. And of course, it's a generalisation, but I've just got there on that slide. It can help us understand how best to approach our lesson planning and brain breaks in the classroom. So it's just a little bit of a calculation that lots of research scholars use to determine this average concentration span by age. So if you grab the age of the children in your class, you times that by 2, that will give you one number, and then you also times the age by 5. It just gives you a bit of an idea as to how long they can potentially have full concentration for. So if we look at the age of 8, that's my daughter. So that will give me a good understanding of her concentration span. And you've got there 16 to 40 minutes. Now you're probably going, Holly, that is not helpful. That's not helpful at all. That's such a large variance in time. And yes, I totally agree. But of course, we know all children in our class are so different. It just gives us a bit of an idea as to if we've got a 2-hour learning block, you're probably going to want 2 or 3 planned brain breaks in that time, if it works. And of course, your class might be different. Maybe they need 4, or maybe they're okay just with 2, but it's just a starting point for how many brain breaks you may like to include in that 2-hour break. So hopefully that's helpful. I'd love to hear what's the age of the children you're teaching at the moment and what you think their concentration span is, and if that actually is relevant and helps you out. All right. So brain breaks in the classroom, what are they? So in the classroom, brain breaks are quick, structured breaks using physical movement, mindfulness exercises or sensory activities. Of course, it depends on the age of the children in your class as to what sort of activities are going to be beneficial for them. Obviously, the sensory activities are really great for the early years, but maybe might not be appropriate for the middle to upper years students. They can be done individually. Oh, sorry. Just touched the wrong thing on my timer. Brain breaks can be done individually, like deep breathing, or as a whole class, like you might do Simon Says, or hopefully you've heard of GoNoodle. My goodness, a fantastic website that if I was back in the classroom, I would absolutely be using GoNoodle in the classroom. Some of the songs and the really fun dance moves on there are amazing, and as a teacher, you might like to join in and have a bit of a brain break as well. So if you haven't discovered GoNoodle, that is definitely a good starting point for some fun and easy brain breaks in the classroom. All you need is the website and your just an interactive or just a whiteboard that you can project it onto. So super easy. Brain breaks also only take a few minutes and give your students a brief rest from what they're doing to help their brain shift focus. And I think that's the main part of this, is I think sometimes we can get caught up about the brain break, but it's helping their brains to shift focus during a learning session. Okay. I'm just going to have a sip of water. Also, during this, make sure you're sharing any cool brain break activities, or if you've got other websites like GoNoodle that you might use, I'd love to hear them. All right, I had to put this quote in there. Movement is the starting point for wiring the brain for learning. And I think any brain breaks that incorporate movement are so beneficial for children during a school day or during a learning session. So movement, there we know that exercise increases blood flow to the brain, which helps with focus and attention. We know this, even for ourselves we know that. It reduces stress and anxiety and makes it easier to focus on important tasks. I'm such a visual person, and this diagram that's on the PowerPoint right now was something that was shared, I think it was shared with me during a university lecture. And I just remember it. So I thought I'd put it on here. So there's 2 children and their brains were scanned during a test. The brain scan on the left is of a child during the test after 20 minutes of sitting quietly. So that child just sat quietly before the test for 20 minutes. And the child on the right is a scan of their brain during the test, but prior to the test, they'd done 20 minutes of walking. So the red part of the brain there, and I guess the yellow and the green going further down, the red is how many neurons, brain neurons are active in the child, and then it goes down to blue, so the lesser neurons. And you can see the child on the right is there's a lot more neurons, there's a lot more brain activity, and that child's just going to find it a lot more easier to get straight into the task and I guess work to the best of their ability, having had a little bit of exercise before sitting down and trying to concentrate on that test. So definitely an image that's resonated with me, and hopefully it resonates with you. I'm not, if anyone's seen that before, please comment down below, or if you've had any experience with that, I'd love to hear that as well. All right. Okay, on the other hand, relaxing equals recharging. We know that. We, as teachers, we know that having that downtime, having that quiet time helps us, and of course it helps children as well. And so it can have sort of similar benefits depending on what activity the child might be going to next. Obviously it helps particularly with our overexcited students who have a hard time self-regulating. Some of the activities that you could include for relaxing are obviously your mindful colouring in, your stretching, your yoga, your meditation, any of those mindful type activities. Breathing exercises are really, really fantastic as well. And I just put a little point in there to remind myself to talk about after lunchtime. So for me, in my class, I would often do these sorts of activities after lunchtime. And you might think, well, what were they doing at lunchtime? They were just playing, like they don't need a brain break from that. But if you consider particularly younger students, being out in the playground, practicing their social skills, playing with new friends, coming up with games to play, maybe managing conflict that might be happening in the playground, that can be quite taxing for younger students particularly. So having something like this to come into after the classroom is a way for their brain to reset, giving their brain a break from that with a completely different task that's just going to calm them down, ready for their learning. So that's sort of it's just really important to know how you're running your class, the kids in your class, and what sort of brain breaks are going to work best for them. Hopefully that's, understand all that. Okay, so this is one of the last slides that I'm going to talk to, and then we'll get into the fun part of showing you the TeachStarter website and some of the fantastic resources and blogs and things, bits of information on there that will hopefully help you out. But hints from Holly. So here are some of the main points that hopefully, like, we understand the research, we understand the different types of brain breaks, And now it's these main points that I'd love to share with you that will hopefully help you incorporate brain breaks into your classroom. I'm sure a lot of you are already doing it already, but it's just nice to hear from other teachers and what they're doing and what's worked for them as well. It's really, I think that's something as teachers we like to listen to, is things that have worked, or particular brain breaks or classroom management strategies that have worked for other teachers. So, number one there, just checking my time, I'm doing well. Be careful not to do the opposite of a brain break. And what I want to talk about here is I think we can get really caught up with possibly putting a little bit of a challenge on the whiteboard that's a bit of a way for the kids to reset and use their brain in a different way. And it might be a maths related challenge, or maybe it's an English related challenge. And I think sometimes we think, oh, that's a great brain break. That's definitely going to work, because then we're going to be going to something different. It gives the kids a change of pace. And for a lot of children, that might be just what they need. But some children actually, if they struggle with maths or if they find that challenge intimidating, it can actually have the opposite effect of what we want that brain break to be. So it might make them feel anxious or more stressed. And so you've done this brain break which you hoped would help the children, but in fact they're starting the next learning session more stressed and anxious than they were prior to that brain break. So it's just being aware of that. And I think sometimes there is a place for that sort of brain break, but it might be like a whole class discussion. So some of those children who might feel a little bit nervous, they're listening to the other students talk about how they may be solving that problem, and that in itself is a brain break, because they're listening to the children talk about how they might go about the particular challenge that's on the whiteboard. So it's just being conscious of making sure that the brain breaks that we're offering are not going to have the opposite effect of what we actually are planning them for. The next one there is make brain breaks visible on the classroom daily timetable. This was probably a game changer for me when I did this in the classroom. In that first year I was talking about, I realised that I really needed to up how many brain breaks I was using in the classroom. And I've just put in brackets there, a meditating brain. So I don't know where I got it from, but it was an image of a brain, a cartoon brain meditating. I printed 10 of these little brains out, and what I did was, and I'm sure lots of you have on your whiteboard, a daily classroom timetable. So at the start of the day, I'd look at the different subjects or classroom activities that we would be doing that day, and I'd pop a little meditating brain where I think it would be good to potentially have a bit of a shift in focus, a bit of a brain break. They can be small little activities. And that just became routine in my classroom. The kids would be like, oh, Mrs. Mitchell, we've got the meditating brain, it's time for a brain break. And that was the other thing, was I told them why we do brain breaks. They called them brain breaks and they understood the reasoning behind it, and it just became routine. The kids knew it, and then it took that away from me. I didn't have to remember to do them, because the kids would often remind me. So yeah, that was definitely something that helped me in the classroom make it brain breaks routine. The other point I've got there is to use what you have available. So yes, I'll go onto the website and I'll show you some of the quick and easy resources that you might like to use for brain breaks in your classroom, but you can also just look around your classroom and see what you have. I was having a chat to Bron, our podcast host, actually the other day when I was talking about this webinar, and she said, oh, you know those attention grabbing cards? I'll show them on the website soon, but we've got attention grabbing cards where it's the teacher will say macaroni and cheese and the students respond with everybody freeze, or there's the teacher says hocus pocus and then the students reply everybody focus. So she's like, you could almost just, and I mean they're intended to be attention grabbers during an intense learning session, But you could also say, okay, kids, for today's brain breaks, we're going to see how many of these you can remember the response to, and you just say 10 of them. It gives them that time to reset. It's a bit of fun, and then they've had their brain breaks. So that's like a super easy thing that you could do by using materials that you already have in the classroom. Or I've just put there even no resources. You don't have to have resources. You can do heads down, thumbs up. One that I really liked doing was 20 questions. So, saying to the students, I've got an image in my head and it's a noun, and then the students they only have 20 questions to ask to try and work out what I'm thinking about. So just quick and easy things like that, or just standing up, stretching up tall like a tree, and then going down small like a rock. I mean, there's just so many different ideas and things that you could use for brain breaks where you don't actually need anything. You just need that reminder, the little meditating brain to remind you to do them. My next point is ask the kids what works for them. It's really hard because there's going to be such a variety of kids in your class, and what might work for one child for a brain break might not work for the other. So once we got into the routine of brain breaks, I sometimes would give them the option, particularly for the larger time frame. I'd often do maybe like a 10-minute brain break in between an intense sort of 2-hour learning session. And I'd often have something that was sort of like mindful colouring. I know on our website we've got giant mindful worksheets that you could print out and stick on the wall, and some students might go to that, and that's what they find helpful for them. It's just them sort of getting in tune with themselves and working out what's going to work for them. Some kids, I mean, like myself, I find mindful colouring more stressful because I'm such a perfectionist that colouring in a sheet, and if I go outside the line, I just can't. It just brings on more anxiety for me, whereas other people in this office love mindful colouring. So everyone's different. So I'd often have that option, and then we might have like more of an exercise yoga type activity as well for them to pick between. So just asking the kids what works for you, what are some other ideas of things we could do for brain breaks in our classroom, asking them. My last point there is to create a brain breaks display or have a box of goodies. So I will show you this blog on the website where I've got an example of one of the brain breaks displays that you could use in the classroom. But also having a box of goodies with a label on it that says brain breaks, and having some of the resources that I'm going to show you on the website printed out, ready to go in little plastic Ziploc bags or something. It just means that when you get to that brain break or that brain meditating, you don't have to think about it. You can just grab one of them out and do them. I think it's just making it easier for yourself, not having to always come up with different things to do in the classroom, and doing the same type of brain break every day doesn't matter either. So it's just making it routine and making it easy for yourself. It might take a bit of time to set it all up, but once it's set up, then you've got it there for the year. So hopefully you find those hints helpful. If you've got any other hints that you think I could potentially share with the other people that are on this webinar, please comment down below. What we'll do is we've also got a Facebook group called Teacher Talk, and if you go onto there, we'll continue this conversation over on that page as well. So it's just all about sharing our ideas and making it easier for one another. Right, how am I going for time? I'm going to have a sip of water. Now to the fun stuff. I've gone through my slides. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm going to now just head to the website. Okay. So hopefully you can see that there. What you can do is if you search brain breaks, often if you search a term on the website, without pressing enter, you'll get shown different resource collections that we have. So if I just click on that resource collection. What we do here is we just pop in, so obviously this Brain Breaks teaching collection has all of the different things that we think might be helpful for you in the classroom for your brain breaks. It's got resources. It's also got blogs. So it's definitely a great starting point for any topic that you might be searching on the website, because it does have just a variety of information there for you. So we've got some of our mini mysteries, some what's missing, spot the difference type activities that you could absolutely project up onto the whiteboard and do as a whole class brain break. We've also got 10 ways to calm your class after lunch. So that's sort of some of those relaxing brain break ideas that I was talking about that I used in my classroom. But what I wanted to go to give you a bit of an overview is, just checking my time. I tend to get a bit excited and talk over time, so apologies for looking down at my phone. I'm just making sure that we have got enough time to talk through these awesome things. Okay, so this blog here, which is one of my blogs, and I think just a great starting point for anyone after this webinar to just have a look at some of the resources or ideas that I've written about before. So that's why I love going to the resource collections, because it includes resources or blogs or even podcasts that Bron has done for that topic, and there is even a podcast in there in that collection. So yeah, just a great starting point for anything that you might be searching, because it gives you a variety of information. So this blog, there's my favorite visual. I want to talk about this resource because part of this resource download is the cards that you can see displayed here, as well as these little cute icons. So I'll just scroll down to this image. Here, it's just a bit of a closer up image for you, so hopefully you can see that. So what I did is I used one of our classroom display banners, just typed the brain break board, and also stuck up any of the activities that I thought my class would like. So there's a variety of activities, and that's the beauty about this resource, is you can pick and choose what you think will suit your class as well. And then my favorite part of this download is these little icons. So you can cut them out and stick them together with a paddle pop stick in between them. And it's just a great way to store them in a little cup. And when you get to your meditating brain and the students yell, "Oh, it's brain break time," you can get a volunteer to go and pick a brain break out of the cup, and then that's the brain break you'll do. So it's just an easy way to take that decision out of your hands. There's a variety of activities in there as well, and it's all available in that one download. So definitely a great resource and a great place to start. Okay, so there's some of the examples. There's hot potato, scissors, paper, rock. Yeah, so a variety of activities in there. So that resource is available in that collection or through this blog. Or if you just want to ask one of the staff online right now, they'll be able to send a link in the comments. Okay, we've also got this great fitness bingo cards resource, which again, you could print that out and have that available in your Brain Breaks box as just an activity that you can pull out and get the kids started on. And it gets them up and moving in a fun sort of way through a bingo game. So something a little bit different. Just make sure I am on track with all the resources I wanted to share with you. There's so many on there. I'm just trying to pick some of my favourites. So yeah, that's the Brain Breaks one. Oh, these two activity ideas in this blog are, again, some that you don't need resources for. I'm not sure if you've ever done this before in your classroom, and let me know if you have, like using the four corners of the classroom. This was one I loved doing. I just got a deck of cards. I'd put the ace of hearts, diamonds, clubs, spades, cards, stuck them in the corners of the room, and then we'd shuffle the cards, and I'd pull out a card, show the kids, and they'd have to go to the correct club. just got them moving, got them thinking, got them looking, just having that mind that reset or that brain break. And the kids loved it. You could turn it into a game. So if they went to the wrong corner, they'd have to sit down. But I kind of don't like doing that. I always want them to have a little bit of fun. And so yeah, that's a simple, easy one you could do with the variety of different like shapes or colours or yeah. Shuffle group is also a fun one that I used to do in the classroom, where they'd walk around and then I'd go groups of 5, groups of 4, groups of 2, and they'd have to get into those groups. You can make it a little bit fun for the early years, and I used to say, you know, walk around the classroom like an ant or hop around the classroom, obviously being careful of space. It can be a bit tricky if you've got an outside area. That's also a possible game you could do outside, and it's often nice to get outside out of the classroom just to have that change of scenery. Okay, this bean game is amazing. I'm just going to go to this resource and actually download it just to show you how cute it is. This was actually a game that we created as part of a week of creating games for the classroom. And if I was in the classroom, I would absolutely do this. I think it's so much fun. Again, this is some little task cards you could print and have in your box of goodies ready to go. So super simple. You don't really need to do much preparation. Once the kids get to know the different moves, it'll become easier as well. Like, let's play the bean game, and they know all the different types of moves that they have to do, but it's so cute. So we've got string bean. So when I call out string bean, the kids have to stretch up and make a tall, thin shape with your body like a piece of string. There's a runner bean, run on the spot like a runner. Just hilarious. I've tried to make the Teach Starter office play this game, but they just don't want to. I don't know why. Broad bean, spread out your arms and legs to make a broad, wide shape. So it's getting their bodies up, it's getting them moving, it's getting them stretching in a fun way. They don't even realise they're doing it. Jelly bean, wobble your body like a wobbly jelly. Refried bean, move your hands, arms and legs quickly like you are being fried on a frying pan. Like, just so funny, I'm just checking the time. Okay. And what else have we got here? Baked bean, curl up on the ground like a small baked bean. Chili bean, hop from one foot to the other like you are treading on hot coals. So it's just a bit different. I just like it because it's a bit different, and experimenting with these different brain breaks and what's going to work in your class is, you know, a great starting point. That might not be something that resonates with your kids. Maybe they're too old, or maybe they just don't like it. I don't know how you wouldn't. I like it. But yeah, it's just having these options available to you and knowing where to go to for these resources. Timed chatter. Simple. Just set a 3-minute timer. Kids can just chat. They can just have a chat about whatever, and that's another super simple thing you could do. Fitness. We've got some fitness cards in that resource collection as well. Okay. A couple of more. I hope you're staying with me. A couple of more really. I'm just picking out some of my favourite that I think I would absolutely use in the classroom, and hopefully it helps you guys with a starting point. Just like that, the bean game, we've got these. If you're learning about the ocean, we've got these really cute ocean-themed movement cards. Again, they're probably more early years centric there, but it's just some different clap like a seal, paddle like a turtle, jump like a dolphin. So all of those sorts of walk like a crab, fun little movement activities that they could do in the classroom. Another thing you could have printed ready in your box of goodies. For the older years, I really like, there's that, this is our giant colouring sheet as well. So you print it out over multiple pages and stick it together and just create a display. So that, I think that would be a good one for the older years. But we've also got these little mini mysteries. We've got them available in PowerPoints as well. So you could do it like you could almost, I'll just download one of them and show you. I wonder, can you let us know if you have downloaded some of these mini mysteries? They're amazing. Let us know if you've used them in the classroom. I know Tom has lots of fun when he's, sorry, it's just downloading it in my PowerPoint, when he made them, and Clayton as well. Actually, I think Clayton came up with all of these. Very clever. So basically the mini mysteries have a question. So what is the shoe's name? The computer's just taking a bit of time. I'm going too fast for it. Hopefully you can see that. So what is the shoe's name? And there's all these cold, hard facts. In fact, everyone is telling the truth and all these different characters, and you get to look closer at each of the characters and try and work out the answer to what is the shoe's name. So you could do this over, you could almost do this mini mystery over a day. So each little mini break, maybe you look at what the question is and you look at the cold hard facts, and then the next brain break you might look at each of the characters, because there's a slide for each of the characters there, and maybe you can talk about it as a class. It's definitely one I think you could do as a class and have lots of fun with it. Okay. Let's have a look. I think we're almost up for time, and I hope some of these activity ideas have helped you in the classroom. But I did want to show you one more thing, which is one of my favourite. We've got Simon Says there, some sensory and movement break ideas blog as well. There's just so much information in this collection. It's definitely a place that you can go to after this webinar for more ideas, and everything that I've spoken about is available in this collection as well. I'm going to go to the blog for this. If anyone got on the IKEA spinner bandwagon, then this is definitely and you have one of these, then I think this might be a little bit of a game changer for you. If you have one of these spinners, we have templates we created ages ago for different types of activities in the classroom. But we do have, and this is one I'd have set up in the classroom all the time, is these movement activity cards. So basically, you cut out the little templates and stick it around, and then when it's brain break time, if it's time for an exercise fitness type brain break, you can spin the spinner, or you can get students to spin the spinner. They always love to volunteer for those sorts of things. And then whatever it lands on, the class has to do. So, do 10 ankle touches, 10 knee touches, a 15-second plank. So it's just some exercise moves with a bit of fun with a spinner. It's amazing how things like that the kids just love to do. So yes, as a recap, hopefully all that information is helpful. Make sure you do head to that Brain Breaks collection, because all the information about the research that I spoke about at the start of the webinar is available in those blogs. We've got heaps of resources in there that you can check out. And as I said earlier, and I've been saying throughout the webinar, thank you so much for those who have asked questions, and hopefully the staff on the line have been able to help you with those questions. If not, you can jump onto the Facebook group that we have, Teacher Talk, and you can ask questions there. And yeah, thanks so much to those who have been sharing all their fantastic ideas for what they do in their classroom for brain breaks. I'm definitely going to have a look at them and maybe I'll share some of them in the group as well. We'll continue the conversation over there. So thank you so much for joining me for this webinar. I hope it's been helpful. I'd love to hear from you if you've got any hints or tips for brain breaks or anything I should add to the next webinar. This webinar has been recorded and will be emailed to you so that you can rewatch or share the content that's covered. So if you think some of this content might help any of your colleagues, please share it. All the best, and I hope to see you at future webinars. Have a lovely night.